You're watching Zoo Tours, the channel that takes you on a virtual field trip to the zoo. Welcome to SeaWorld San Diego's Wild Arctic, a notable zoo experience that went public in 1997. 2 years after the settlement of Orlando's own base station. While the concept is pretty much the same at both parks, each is still unique in their own way. The Wild Arctic isn't just highly thematic, but offers dramatic, immersive sights, sounds, and the feeling of a hostile but still wonderful world. Before we take the ride of our lives to the top of the world, if you are a new research student, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon to be the first in line for our tours. I'd like to give a big shout out to Echo Beluga, who allowed us to use as much of their footage as we could. They are by far YouTube's best marine park related channel, and I go to them anytime I'm feeling homesick for SeaWorld. Another big thank you is in order for Mark, who once again took time out of his weekend to film with the crew and also provide his own amazing footage. With all of that taken care of, let's begin. Your life-changing day at SeaWorld San Diego will of course start at the entrance's Explorer's Reef. Hands down the most hands-on interactive exhibit I have ever experienced. And to get to the Wild Arctic from this point, just follow the paths that lead to the right until you reach the Franklin Exploration Center. A few years back, you could either walk to the Arctic or fly. One of the entrances was a boarding area that led to the White Thunder helicopter, a motion simulator film synchronized with real-life footage and miniatures that used the same motion technology as commercial and military flight simulations. As your captain pilots you out of some pretty treacherous situations, you're given a preview of the environment and the animals that you are about to see. If motion simulators aren't your thing, the second entrance presented the same film without the motion, and you could just walk right past it. Unfortunately, both film stations were discontinued in 2020. With or without it, your next destination was always the Wild Arctic Base Station, stocked with unpacked research and survival equipment, and the centerpiece is the Arctic Scout helicopter that the team uses just in case they need to keep an extra distance from their subjects. Up ahead is the base's only open-fronted view, and the only time you'll truly feel that famous San Diego cold only a brave few can handle. Shortly after the researchers set up base camp, they encountered a friendly creature that quickly became accustomed to our team. Later on in the tour, you'll learn what info we've gathered on them. The Wild Arctic welcomes everyone to look around the staff's lived-in research, a testimony to all of their hard work. This is where they eat, sleep, and study live cams that were set up in various spots far from the base, and see why we are not exploring the right side of the station. The Wild Arctic concept, and the base station itself, was built around the story of HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror that were used in Captain John Franklin's 1845 expedition to find a route from the UK to Asia through the Northwest Passage. Though ultimately it was an ill-fated journey, Franklin's discovery and route did eventually lead others successfully through the harsh Northwest Passage. The wreckage acts as a scenic backdrop and creates barriers between the cracked ice, separating our first animals from the largest carnivore on land. Since they've moved on, the experts temporarily reserved this for rescues that we will catch below deck. Perhaps the most immersive element in the entire park has nothing to do with animals at all: a hallway of ice. SeaWorld exhibits overall have become less interactive over the years, but at least you're still free to leave your mark on this wall of ice, and quickly you'll notice that other species have left theirs as well. The next subject, also partially enclosed in the ship's wreckage, is one of the largest marine mammals you will ever see. Alongside seals and sea lions, walruses are part of a group called pinnipeds, semi-aquatic species with fin-like feet. It's not hard to confuse seals and sea lions with one another. Walruses make things a little easier. Most pinnipeds are covered in short fur. These behemoths appear mostly bald, and I think we can all agree that it suits them. It really does make their mustaches much more noticeable. It's not just any normal hair. Their muzzles grow 400 to 700 vibrissae, or as you might call them, whiskers. Guys may use a mustache to impress the ladies, but the walruses has a much greater purpose. Like a cat's whiskers, they are sensitive to the touch and used to feel the world around them, especially when it comes to food. The walrus is a bottom feeder, and these whiskers help detect shellfish and other benthic invertebrates scattered along the dimly lit ocean floor. Experts believe a walrus's eyesight is not as sharp as other flippered friends, but with this kind of diet, astute vision is not necessary to survive. If you would like to study the details of a walrus by getting even closer than this, SeaWorld offers close-up encounters. An animal care specialist will bring you face to whisker with one or multiple walruses, teach you about their individual personalities and how they are cared for every day. In America, these days it's very rare that you'll find walruses under researchers' care. But this will not be our last meeting with these giants, and next time we'll learn what threats they have to face. As you're saying your goodbyes, or returning kisses, you might notice this vocalization station. This video talks about rescued walruses in the US and where to find them, and if you push this, you should hear a soundbite of walrus vocals. Nothing played, but let's just pretend that it did. The heart of the wild Arctic is also the most intact part of either of the ships, originally identified as the HMS Erebus, which in reality was abandoned after a year and 7 months after being trapped in ice. As the updated story goes, this is not the Erebus, after the actual wreckage of the ship was discovered in Canada's Wilmot in Crampton Bay. At the end of this abandoned vessel is an abandoned den, which is probably for the best. Several years ago, the Wild Arctic team had plenty of run-ins with polar bears, an original resident to the base station. Unfortunately, the space wasn't exactly adequate for this species, and once they left, they never returned. But like I said, the researchers closed up the cracks in the ice and eventually turned this space into a rehab center for sea otters. Some of you just saw the world's longest otter. Say hello to the world's largest member of the otter and therefore the weasel family. Northern sea otter males can weigh nearly 100 pounds, and clearly most of that is the densest fur in the world. If you have ever seen a sea otter spend much of their time conditioning their hair, rolling at the surface, or spinning like no one's watching, it means they are either washing away food scraps from their chest, or they are trapping air inside their fur, and that air prevents water from touching their skin. If they don't keep their fur clean and their undercoats dry, there's nothing else protecting them from freezing waters. The Wild Arctic rescues have taken quite nicely to the research team. They made sure to get their daily boops, or target training, practice their elegant water ballet, or exercise, and even showed mutual affection with one another. For food, but even I can't blame them. There's no doubt that they're living their best lives here, but there's also a reason why experts thought it would be best if they stayed here. Sea otters are classified as an endangered species, and the list of threats they face seems never ending. They are prey to killer whales, eagles, and sharks, but that's nature. On top of that though, there's boat strikes, entanglement with fishing gear, oil spills, and are even shot at. The otters that you'll find at SeaWorld were all found at very young ages, malnourished and most likely orphaned. I know what you're thinking. Who could possibly harm a face like this? Fortunately, there are places like the Alaska Sea Life Center, SeaWorld, and many more that give hundreds of marine mammals every year a second chance. I just got word from the base station. These northern sea otters were transferred to another SeaWorld park, and this is now a home to a ringed seal, or what I call a missed opportunity, and harbor seals. Both just happen to be the polar bear's original replacement. In case you're wondering, you can still find southern sea otters at SeaWorld San Diego's Dolphin Point. Speaking of seals, before they lived on their own, they were mixed with a mystical creature. The name Beluga originates from a Russian word that means white, this cetacean's most standout feature. And if that isn't what separates this whale from the rest, then it would be their melon. Every toothed whale has a melon, or a mass of tissue in their foreheads. A beluga's is so large that it overhangs their beak. I couldn't find a specific reason as to why it's so large, but I do know that it's squishy and changes shape when they echolocate and communicate. That's not the only thing that overhangs. They have love handles. To us, love handles are excess fat at the waistline, and it's not something most of us want. But you do if you're a beluga. It may look like that they're just padded with a bunch of extra blubber and fat to keep them warm. But these love handles are actually abdominal muscles, which they can flex, determine their length and height, and use them to steer when they're swimming. This awkward shape might give the idea that they're not as athletic as, let's say, Shamu, but they are just as charismatic and active as any other cetacean. So their breeches may not be as high, but that doesn't stop them from trying. If a view like this isn't close enough for you, you can make a reservation for not just one, but 2 close-up encounters. One that takes you behind the scenes to feed and learn about these amazing mammals poolside. Or if you're brave enough, throw on a wetsuit and hop in this 600,000 gallon 50-degree Fahrenheit pool and share this Arctic environment with the belugas and experience what might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Few places in the world offer this kind of encounter, especially in North American parks, where so few belugas are found. Luckily for us, we will see them at least one more time when we explore the Wild Arctic Base Station in Florida. That will round off our first freezing tour at SeaWorld San Diego. Several countries share this isolated but inhospitable region, but the Wild Arctic designers did a fine job portraying this icy landscape that immerses both animals and its guests. And as I've said, there's still more to explore at the top of the world. And one day, we will compare the elements of this research station to Orlando's Wild Arctic. In the meantime, our next SeaWorld San Diego adventure will take place on the opposite end of the Earth. So until next time, please stay tuned for the next episode of Zoo Tours. See if you can answer this episode's trivia question. And as always, thank you for watching.